Hello and welcome to SaaS Marketing Insights, the show where we ask SaaS founders, CEOs, marketers, and investors about the lessons they've learned in their quest to grow their companies. My name is Paul Stevenson, and I'm founder and CEO of SaaS marketing agency 47 Insights. On today's show, I have an interview with Anthony Kennada, CMO of Gainsight. Hope you enjoy it. So, Anthony Kennada, CMO of Gainsight.
Correct.
Welcome to the podcast.
Thank you. Thanks for having me on.
Yeah, well, it's a pleasure to be here. Here we are at SaaSta. Mm-hmm. We're in a quiet room. We're not,
Yeah.
So there's no throng going on or whatever. So, for anyone who doesn't know what Gainsight do, and I watched your presentation with Nick, your CEO, yesterday, which was a great explanation. What the hell's Gainsight?
Yeah. So Gainsight, we are a company that's trying to evangelize a new way of growing a subscription business by putting the customer kind of at the center. And we do it through a business line and a kind of philosophy and a function called customer success, which we've spent the last about 6 years really trying to evangelize and build and kind of create industry around. And we announced at the show we're now also getting in the product experience space, so similarly helping product teams understand who their users are and how they're interacting with their feature set, enabling them to just build better products that their customers love. So this whole concept of really putting the customer at the center, it sounds like an HR kind of poster you put on the wall. We're trying to turn that into a growth lever for companies.
And, you know, in terms of the outcome, you have a software product that does that?
We have a software product that helps, again, these two teams really operationalize this within their business. But, you know, a lot of what we talked about at SaaSter is, you know, we've also tried to create the movement in the community and help resource this new community to sort of understand kind of how to be great at customer success. What is it? How do we justify investment? How do we get our board to care? Which, you know, in the early days was the big kind of conversation point. Today, it's actually become a pretty decent function now within organizations. And so a lot of that is really thought leadership, brand, those types of things that prototypically I don't think a lot of B2B companies think about in the same sentence as growth, right? It's either go do the brand community stuff or spend money on demand gen. And we're here to say that the brand stuff actually fueled our growth. Which is kind of, frankly, a big kind of exciting part of the job too.
So you've been in Gainsight since the start, is that right?
Yeah. So there's like two genesis of the company. Like chapter one, bootstrapped in St. Louis, Missouri, and Hyderabad, India. Kind of came out of Host Analytics, another kind of SaaS business. Nick came on as CEO in 2013, and I came on about 2 months later, having worked with him before. And so I've been there now for 6 years, but when we joined, it was 5 to 10 customers. The company was called JBera Software. There really wasn't a lot of the go-to-market infrastructure built at the company yet, and so we were the team that came in and said, hey, like we can either follow the path of the analyst community and say, hey, this is a CRM product or proactive customer support or something to that effect. Or we can go build something around this customer success thing that we've been observing. And so that's been sort of the decision point and journey ever since that. I've been very fortunate to be on.
So your presentation yesterday was about the creation of this customer success category, and it sounds like you guys were instrumental in that. Yeah. There were already people playing in that space as well, or was it just something that just evolved and you guys noticed it and other people noticed the same trend at the same time?
Yeah, there might have been a few other small startups like we were at the time. There were. What there wasn't was an incumbent winner in that space that said, we are the support system of record, we are the CRM of record, right? There are these companies that come to mind where you're like, they're the, whatever the saying is, 8,000-pound gorilla or whatever.
Yeah, in the room.
In the room, exactly. That didn't exist for us.
Right.
So we effectively had to create mind share, point to pain that people didn't know they had, which in our case was churn, right? Churn, people leaving, unsubscribing from your product. And so in that world, it was sort of a thought leadership arms race of sorts, where
Yeah.
all of us were trying to help evangelize and build this category. Most of those companies aren't here anymore. Only a couple still are. And I think for us, it's been both a journey of defining the industry, helping to build a stage where the customers can actually help standardize what it means. So it's not just some vendor saying, hey, this is what customer success means, but if we can help facilitate that discussion, that people would think about the company as the category leader. And so that's been kind of the execution lever for us over the years is, help resource it, help standardize it, but also help to grow the software kind of business side of it too.
So I think in your presentation yesterday, you said that one of the ways you did that was educational events.
Yeah.
And we'll see it, we'll hear it. But as interested to hear a bit more about how you got started doing that, because very small team. It's just you doing marketing.
Yes, it's me. Yeah.
How did you get started?
Well, I didn't grow up wanting to be an event marketer. I don't know if many people do. It's
stressful.
Yeah, very stressful. I think there's actually a list, right? It's like the top most stressful jobs in the world, and literally it's like firefighters, something else, and it literally says event marketers. But when I started at Gainsight, Nick had observed that there were these groups of customer success managers that would meet around the Bay Area in different offices, actually rooms not too dissimilar to this. And there was no production, there was nothing, but there was this like energy in the room. Like, oh my gosh, I'm around other people that are going through the same thing I'm going through. Yeah. There was this like cathartic sense of like belonging that we saw. And so he came back from one and said, we're gonna go host an event. I was like, great. So it's a launch party, startup t-shirts at a bar in San Francisco, right? Like put our card down, that kind of thing. He's like, no, I want us to go and do an industry event, a conference. And I was like, well, I guess got to figure out how to do that. And so we learned a lot along the way, but the idea was basically, can we host an event that had nothing to do with our company, nothing to do with our product, a list of speakers that were engaged with the brand promise, they were engaged with the idea of customer success, and leverage the strength of our speaker list to basically draw people to come. 300 people came.
Wow.
And so we were very fortunate that we picked the right kind of community, I think, to really tap into that passion. And that is really what helped form our thinking for everything else we've done since. Yeah. So we've scaled the conference program, but the bigger learning was leveraging content, brand, whatever you want to call it, community, as a means of growing the business. And we do a lot of the traditional stuff too, the paid media and all that, but it's really just amplifying all of that stuff. Yeah. And so that was sort of the aha that we built the entire marketing strategy on top of. Still kind of work on today.
Fantastic. So, what do you think the future looks like for this space that you guys are in? Because I've been talking to a few people, and they say, we want to be, we want to do something similar to Gainsight, but at a lower level. And everybody's now slicing and dicing the category. Yeah. Where do you see it going?
Yeah. Well, the interesting thing is, we didn't talk about this today. This is the bonus features of our session. Was how do you name a category? How do you know what to call it? And for us, I think it was great because it created this emotional chord with the audience. Of course, we want to help make our customers successful. This makes a lot of sense. We didn't name it. Salesforce actually came up with the job function that we anchored to. Yeah. But customer success is both a job function that exists, but also a strategy at the sort of CEO level that is more business transformation than it is like functional, operational, account management and whatnot. So that's actually a little problematic because we spent a lot of time kind of building this community around the function and the organization. But from a business kind of imperative point of view, we think customer success scans across all departments, right? And so we want to think about how do you articulate that story? How do you expand the category you've created by sort of uplifting, up-leveling those that have sort of been on this journey with you, while also telling the sort of CEO story for why this matters. And so we're experimenting a lot of different kind of concepts. We're working with some firms to help us do some research around it. But I think the core idea is that ultimately in subscription, the biggest lever for companies to be able to grow and become sustainable in their business model is to make their customers successful.
Yeah.
To build products that people love to use. So there's
Zero
something
churn.
around zero churn, net negative churn.
Yeah, of course.
Good product usage, consumption. Those are the things that help you really grow as a subscription business. So I think that's kind of where we're getting to, is sort of up leveling, putting customer success and some other categories in context of the broader growth story.
Fantastic. And you were saying just before we started that you haven't always been a marketer.
No.
So how did you get started in marketing?
Yeah, I found what I love doing, if that helps. But my first job, actually fresh out of college, was to be a recruiter for placing software engineers. And showing my age here, but I graduated in 2008, which was a terrible time to hire anyone. Yeah. It was the recession and bad career decision right out of the gates. But I was successful in the limited time we were there in placing one engineer with a company called Box in Palo Alto. And so as that company as the recruiting business went under, I called the folks at Box and said, hey, can I get a shot somewhere on your sales floor? I'll move up, all that sort of thing. So I interviewed, drove up from my home in Los Angeles, and got the job. And 10 years later, was still living up here in the Bay Area. And so I was at Box in sales and a business development capacity. I moved to the company that Nick, our CEO, was last at, called Live Office, again in business development. We sold that business to Symantec, and I joined a product team, actually, so did kind of a hard right there. I thought I'd be in product forever. And then when Nick called me up saying, hey, I'm going to go do this thing. How do you feel about marketing? I honestly had no idea. I was like, I'm going to Wikipedia demand gen and try to sound smart here on the interview. But he had great faith in me, which is awesome. To give
You obviously
me the
had
chance.
a great relationship.
We had a great relationship before, for sure.
He needed someone he could trust.
Totally. And for me, the big challenge as sort of getting into that opportunity at a young age was, how do I prove myself? How do I deliver value? So I certainly put a lot of pressure on myself to keep pushing the boundaries of what we were delivering. Now, the interesting thing though, had I brought in 10, 20 years of tenure in marketing, I don't know that we would have done some of the crazy ideas that ended up working out, because you don't do conferences. You don't think, who does a conference 90 days?
They just say you can't do it.
Yeah.
We haven't got the budget all the time.
No budget. Like, that's not how it's done. Like, I need AdWords. I need to start doing some SEO work. So I think running that B2B marketing playbook, Gainsight would have been the proactive account management company.
Right.
And I think that has a lot less. We may not have reached our ambition as that company than we are today. So, not just myself, but the team and Nick and everyone else that really helped kind of champion that direction. I think that was something that our first principles-based thinking, not having all that experience, helped benefit us a little bit.
Great. So one of the things I was just thinking about was, you went from being a handful of people 6 years ago, and Gainsight's grown considerably.
Yeah.
And obviously, you're in this role. How has that role changed in those 6 years?
Oh my gosh, changes a lot. Early days, it was sort of jack of all trades. We had a lot of agency support around us, and so I had outsourced demand gen, outsourced PR, stuff to that effect. And I hired on some of the critical hires we made early was somebody to lead demand gen, somebody to lead product marketing, and an events person. And that was kind of like the team for a very long time, actually probably 2 or 3 years of the journey. It really wasn't until sort of our next gen demand gen hire that we brought in that we said, hey, let's really scale this. We did it outside of the Bay Area, which was helpful. We brought in the sales development function into the team. And so really, you can say chapter 1 is all about experimenting and trying to figure out what worked. Chapter 2 then, in kind of a more traditional demand gen motion, was accountability to driving pipeline. It's evolved. Now we're 60 people on the team, right? So the team's grown quite a bit. A lot of sales development, so that makes up probably 20 of the 60, maybe even a little bit more. But the job ends up being more aligned to bookings and revenue and brand and some of these things, but I don't feel that they're disconnected. And so our ability to be good partners and sort of servant leaders with our sales team, that's a lot of what the dialogue is today. And so even though we might still be measured by pipeline creation or pipeline coverage, stuff to that effect, we don't win if our sales team doesn't win. And so that's really where a lot of the new sort of focus on the company is. It's that, and it's, we're in the phase of driving efficiency in the business. It's less of that experimental phase maybe we had in the early days. So we're trying to be more efficient on our customer acquisition costs. And that's where we're doing a lot of that's where we're getting kind of a lot of the challenges, challenging our skill sets, I suppose, and really pushing us as how to do more with less.
So what would you say, during that tenure and the change in your role? What do you think, the biggest thing that you've learned, or the best insight that you have, or best thing not to do, maybe? I don't know.
Yeah. Well, I think the best. I think one thing I learned most is like being able to kind of keep your ambition high, stay creative, and we literally. It's not very creative, but we invented the word crambition as something that kind of guides our thinking. Another way to think about it is sort of we looked at Disney as a reference of like Imagineering, like coming up with a crazy idea that you're like, this doesn't make any sense, we can't pull that off, and then finding a way to will it into existence and execute. So the ability to build that muscle of dreaming big, but then like gutting it out and finding a way to make it happen. I think that's something that we've sort of picked up over time. Our biggest challenge, and what we haven't figured out great, is how to do that efficiently. Like we filmed rap videos, that have done really well for us. Carpool karaoke. Hard to track a lot of the ROI of some of that stuff. It's there, and we know it's valuable. But those are expensive things for us to do instead of pouring into AdWords or displaying.
Yeah, it's great that you've got a CEO that supports that kind of ambition.
It wouldn't happen without it.
A lot of people would just say, "We can't track this."
Yeah,
this is brand awareness.
Totally.
Who knows what it's gonna?
We're very lucky to have Nick, because he is appreciative of what being able to sort of take who we are as a company, what our culture is, what his sort of value set is, and find ways to put that on display for the world. I think that's, or for the industry at least, those things have compounding value. You get folks that see that and realize, hey, we want to do business with a company like Gainsight. They don't take themselves too seriously, or they have a good sense of humor, and by the way, they have a great product, and they're working on a very complex problem. But the marriage of those two things, I think, helps us accelerate pipe. Very hard to track, very hard to talk to the CFO about, but I think Nick has that appreciation, and so that definitely helps us be crambitious as a marketing team.
It's a good word. Anthony, thank you very much for your time. I really appreciate it.
No, thanks for having me on, Paul. Appreciate it.
My pleasure.
Yeah, thank you.
I hope you enjoyed my conversation with Anthony. For more info on Gainsight, please visit www.gainsight.com. For more info about this show, and to get our links to iTunes, Google Play, SoundCloud, Stitcher, and YouTube, check out www.47insights.com. And if you have any SaaS marketing insights that you'd like to share on the show, please get in touch. Until next time.